Hey everyone, this is the second video of our Next.js series. I also came live yesterday, but कुछ issues की वजह से मुझे वो वीडियो प्राइवेट करना पड़ी and then I'm coming live again and मैं सेम चीज़ पढ़ा रहा हूँ जो कल पढ़ाया था. So let's start the video. So in today's video, what we are going to learn API routes, database and server actions and data fetching, like how we used to fetch data in React.js and how we are going to fetch data in Next.js. What are the best practices in Next.js to fetch the data? So let's see how. Yeah, let's see. So backends in Next.js, let's learn about it. As we learn about Next.js, Next.js is a full stack framework built on top of React, which means we can write front end and back end code in a single code base. We don't have to create separate code bases for front end and back end. Single code, single process will handle front end and back end part. So there are many benefits of it. Let's see in Excalibur. These are some benefits that why we should use Next.js over React.js. So first of all, single code bases for all of our code bases such as front end and backend. We don't have to create separate front end and backend, and there is no course issue because as we will have a single code base for front end and backend, our domain will be same, and that's why we will not having a course issues. And it is very easy to deploy because once again we have single code base. We don't have to deploy two code bases. So let's see, if this is our front end and this is our back end, what Next.js do, we have to create separate front end and back end if we are using React and Node. But in case of Next.js, we can write front end and back end code. We can write front end and back end code. अबे, एक minute. We can write front end and back end code inside Next.js. So if we want to deploy it, we don't have to deploy front end and back end separately. We will be just deploying this Next.js application, and our front end and back end will be up and running, and there will be no course issues since both of these front end and back end will be like pointing to the same domain. But for API we will have this route. Okay, let's see how we can fetch data in Next.js. First of all, let's see how we used to do it in React.js. What is the disadvantages of using the way we used to do in React? Let's see. So here is the code. Let me create an Next.js project first so that we can test this out. Let me open command prompt. And what the command to initialize the Next.js project? Npx create next app at the rate latest. This is the command, as you can see below. Npx create next app at the rate latest. So this is the command. Let's run it and let it be initialized. It will ask, it will prompt some information, or we can say कि हमें कौन कौन सा कॉन्फ़िगरेशन चाहिए, टेलविन सीएसएस चाहिए Do we need React router, app router, or do we need what the pages router? Yes, we will be using TypeScript today. Okay, just say yes, yes. We will be using app router. Okay. Now packages will get installed. See, this is the code we used to write in React.js to fetch the data from our backend server. So what we used to do, we initialized use state, and then in use effect we call that API and set the fetch data to the state, and then we sort of display our fetch data. So what's the problem here? If you have learned what is waterfalling in our previous video, you can understand the problem, that what is the problem in here. And if we write code like this, we will get rid of benefit of Next.js. See, this is what will happen. Like if we use this way, what will happen is our browser will ask for the HTML file, the CDN, which is content delivery network. CDN is like it catches the data that we often frequently get, and then it serves it from the nearest server, and then after we receive the HTML file, the browser sees, oh, there is a script file in it as well, so it asks to the CDN that, hey CDN, please send me the script file. When the browser gets that script file, browser sees that it needs some, like it has called some API. So then browser called that API, the request reaches to the backend server, and the backend server responses, and the browser get the fetched data and then render it on the browser. So this is how the request response cycles work. If we use this type of fetching, like the way React way, we can say React way, we use this type to fetch the data in React. Let's see if our project is initialized or not. It always take a lot of time, yaar. Let's recap what we have learned yesterday. If you see, we have learned about SEO optimization, waterfalling, Next.js features, and we have created a simple Next.js app, and we have learned server-side rendering. This is the most important thing that we have learned yesterday, and these two. So let's see SEO optimization. What happens when a user, like Google crawlers, search engine crawlers, Google bots, hits our website and sees if what is the content inside it. Usually in our HTML file the content is present, but in React, when we code in React renders the code on the client side, and initially we get the empty HTML from the server. So because of that empty server, crawlers will not be able to understand that what this website do. So usually back in the days, the SEO, like search engine wasn't this much smart कि वो हमारी स्क्रिप्ट फाइल भी रन करके चेक करेगी ये वेबसाइट क्या करती है. बट nowadays search engine becomes smart, and they can run our JavaScript and see that what these websites do. So anyway, like इतना SEO में फर्क नहीं पड़, मतलब इतना SEO ऑप्टिमाइज्ड नहीं है React. So that's why we need Next.js. Waterfalling problem again that I have explained Okay, we have to like we request something from the server returns something, and then we again request something. If you see this line, hi, yeah. The waterfalling problem in React and more broadly in web development refers to a scenario where data fetching operations are chained or dependent on each other in a way that leads to inefficient loading behavior, which means that it is chained. Like here you can see, first we need to ask for a HTML file, then server will return that HTML file, browser will see in that HTML file कि ओ इस कि script file भी उसमें, so browser will ask for a script file. So these are some request and response are ongoing and chained, or they can be dependent on each other. So this is the waterfalling problem. And server side rendering, I'll be explaining server side rendering today as well, so that your concept get clear. Let's see if the अबे ये अभी तक नहीं होगा, कितना टाइम लेता है यार ये, क्या मेरा नेट स्लो चल रहा है? लेट मी सी. Yeah, net is working very good. Then what's the problem? Why it is taking this much time? It shouldn't take this much time यार, ये इतना टाइम लेगा तो कैसा चलेगा? Let's see. I had created a project yesterday, so let's open that. Okay, I think I have opened it. Yeah, let me clear these things. Okay, if I paste this code here, you can see what I am doing here is, first of all, okay, this is JSX file, so we shouldn't use TypeScript here. Okay, so what we have initialized our state for the first joke, and then the loading. जब तक डेटा फेच नहीं होता तब तक ये हम लोडिंग शो करवाएंगे. And then what we are doing in use effect, we are calling the API and then setting it to the set joke use state. And then जब तक कि वो डेटा हमारा फेच नहीं होता, we are showing loader here. And if the data get fetched, we are then showing the actual data. So let's see how it looks like. Let me go to the localhost 3000 as it is running. We can run this by npm run dev. Let's open localhost 3000 and let's see. It will give an error. It will give an error because, as you can see, this is our Next.js application, and we have used use effect and use state here. So this component should be client component, because wherever we use any kind of hook in Next.js or interactivity features like on change or on click, we should make the component client component, because server component doesn't support any interactivity. Server components usually return an static page, so we have to make this component client component. So first let's see what error we can get, and then we will be adding use client directive, which will eventually make this component client component, and then we can start continuing our project. Okay, so you can see we get the error. See what it is saying: you are importing a component that needs use state. This react hook only works in a client component. To fix, mark the file or its parent with use client directive. So what we need to do to resolve this error, we need to make this component client component using this use client directive. We can use this use client directive to make the component client component. So let's save this and see if the error goes away or not. Okay, let's hit the website again. Okay, the code is compiled and it is ready to hit the hit our website. So let's and we can see the loader before fetching the data. And once when we get the data, we can see our data on the page. But what is the problem here? As I said before, that there is waterfalling problem one, and there is second problem is client side rendering. It is, yeah, these two problems we have currently because we are using this react way of fetching the data. So let me prove you what I am saying. If I open network tab and if I refresh the page, you can see in localhost this is HTML file. If I open this and refresh the file, sorry, browser, let's see, the content is loading because the data is fetching currently. If we go to the localhost, we can see loading is state here, right? And now the data is fetched, but we are not able to see this data here. We are not able to see data. Let me copy and search here. See, we are not able to see any kind of data here instead of just loading state. So how can we solve this problem? We can use async components to fetch the data, which will able to like first which will able to when the data is loaded, it appears that data here. So on the very first initial page, we can see our fetch data directly inside our this localhost file or whatever we name it. So let's see, let me explain that what's happening here. If we see what we are doing, this is our browser and we are like हम पेज पर आए, हमने रिफ्रेश किया. So our component is getting rendered and then it says we have used use state and use effect to fetch the data. So what it will do, it will call an API, and जब तक ये API से data नहीं आता है, it will show loading state here, right? एंड जब डेटा रिस्पॉन्स में आ जाता है, we are to able to see that data on the browser, but we are not able to see that data on the network tab on the very first loaded initial html file. So this is the problem. You can see here, this is the problem. Oh, and if in React, what happens, sorry, in Next.js, if you do Next.js and use server-side rendering. Server-side rendering, what does it mean? Let me explain you. A browser hits the Next.js server. Like we come to the website, the browser will ask for the HTML file to the Next.js server. The server will see that browser has asked for the HTML file. The server will think, let me first see what is the content inside the HTML file. So the server will open that, like will see that html file, and that server, that Next.js server will see that there is an script file in it. So it will see that script file as well. It will try to render it, and it will see that this script file calling some backend api. So what the next server will do, it will call that API in the Next.js server. From the Next.js server, it will call that API, and then the backend server, like suppose we are using Node.js server, so that Node.js server will return the data, and when Next.js server will return get that data, it will render the HTML page and sends back it to the browser. So the browser will receive that HTML file. So that initial HTML file will get all the data which we fetched from the backend servers. So very initial loaded HTML file will have all our data that we asked to the backend server. Let's see in practical. Here we can use this code. This is how we can use server side rendering. Let me see whether this project has in it. Oh, ये तो अभी तक नहीं हुआ है. Let it be. Okay, if I go and if I paste the code, see, it is very simple code. And since we haven't uh, tell Next.js that which directive we need to use here, so it will automatically by default use server, like all the files inside app.js are server components. Like we don't, if we don't initialize it, use client direct, if we don't use client, it will make that component server component. Okay, so here what we are doing, we are fetching those jokes directly, and we can see we have made this page component async. As I told you in previous video as well, that we can make component async in Next.js. This update were came on the app router. So जब से app router आया, we can make async components, and we can directly then fetch the data on the root level of the page. So we are not using any use state, we are not using any use effect to fetch the data. We are just calling the API call and getting the data and displaying it over here. Let's see how it looks in the network tab. If then I reload, you will see that it will not give us a flash at the beginning. It will directly show us the data. Okay, so you can see here very initial HTML file that we get from the server has this data inside it. You can see how did the hipster burn the roof of his mouth. You can see that here as well. So when search engine optimizes, like when search engine will hit this website, they can see that the data is present here and they can rank this website according to this. So this makes it more SEO optimized. Server side makes our website SEO optimized because at very initial page we can see the data. So that's the benefit of server side rendering. Mm, let's see. At this point, you think that in previous approach we have used loader, but in this approach we हमने loader use नहीं किया है. But why? Because if you are thinking that we can now add use effect and try to use add loader, but if we add use effect we have to make this component client component, and then it like circle like client side rendering will happen and we will get rid of, like we will not getting the benefit of Next.js if we do that way. So to show the loader, what we can do in Next.js, we have a file like page.jsx, layout.jsx. We can create a file loading.jsx, and जब तक ये डेटा फैच नहीं हो रहा है Next.js will automatically showing this component on the screen. Here you can see loader in Next.js. If this get joke API takes some time, let's say 5 seconds, we should like we need to show loader for 5 seconds, right? So for that we can use loading.jsx file. it it is like a page.tsx and layout.tsx or jsx. If I'm using javascript, so jsx. So let's copy paste this code. You can define all the styles you want in this loading.jsx for your loader, but I am currently adding a very simple loading page where only I have added a loading text. If I save this and go to the website, and if I hit it again, you will be able to see loading here. Okay, it was very sudden. See, you can see the loading state first. We get the loading state, and then if you scroll down, sorry, I think page. Okay, huh? And then you scroll down, you can see the data, right? Let me show you again. If I refresh this page, you can see like it is very fast. You are not able to see loading on the page, but it is adding loading there. If you see, let me make it a bit big. If I make it h1, okay, what is happening? H1 has no corresponding tag. Why? Oh yeah, okay. Let me hit it again, and then you can see the loading. Okay. Why it is taking this much time? I don't know. I think my laptop is very slow. That's why. See, the loading is dead and then our data is fetched. So you are able to see the loading, and if you go to the localhost, you can see first what it was showing. It was showing loading state, right? And after the data is fetched, it is appending it to the localhost like our HTML file, and we can see that our data is added here. So when search engine will hit this website, they will able to see our data and rank the website accordingly. Okay, so I think you guys understand what is server side rendering and how it happens and what are the benefits of server side rendering. Server side rendering makes our website SEO optimized. Okay, let's see the next thing. Yeah, this is the most important section of today's video. Introducing API routes in Next.js. How we can write API routes in Next.js. Let's see this. If you see, Next.js lets you write backend routes just like Express does. That's why it is considered to be a full stack framework. As I explained you here, that Next.js let us write front end and backend code, and because we can write front end and backend code, that's why we can call it full stack framework. Okay, and then the benefits of using Next.js you can see as I described again. Like as I described before, there will be a code. There will be a single repo for our code base. All the standard things that we can get from any backend framework like Express, we can get in Next.js. And this is also a most important thing. Server components can directly talk to the backend. So sometimes on like static pages, we don't even need to like on server components, or when we are serving the page, like we are rendering the page on the server side, we don't need to create an API. We can directly call the database there. So this is another benefit of Next.js. Okay, let's first see how we can create API routes in Next.js. So there are some rules. As I told you in previous video that Next.js is very opinionated. We have to follow some certain rules that Next.js has defined. We have to use those rules. So for API, we have to create an API route inside app directory. You have to name it API. You don't have any other choice. You have to name it API, and whatever folder you create inside that, that folder will become the endpoint. Let if you want, this is our domain, and if you like, if you want user page, if you want about page, whatever page you want, sorry, whatever route you want, you have to name that to create, like you have to name that route here. So when you create folder, you have to give this name to make this API endpoint. You can see here, add a folder inside API called user. So we will create user, like we create user folder inside API directory, and inside user, like whichever endpoint we are going to use, we have to put a route.jsx file inside that. And this is also a rule, like we need to give the name route. We can't give it another name to make a route. So we have to create a file name route inside our endpoint name or our route. See, sorry, we can't use JSX here because it is React specific thing. But in like in backend, we can't use JSX. We use JS or TS if in case if you are types using TypeScript. So let's see. This is how we can write a get request. What this is doing? This is exporting an async function. The function name is get. Okay, this is also like we have to use get for get name to create a get request, like to create a get route. You can't, like if you want to use post, so you have to name here post function. You have to give the function name post here. So I have added the route here, and then I am returning a response. This response is available globally on the backend side of the Next.js. Usually you can say inside API the response is available as a global variable, and we are then returning this response in JSON format. And what we are returning, username and email. So if I save this and if I go to our website and if I add slash API, from where I get this API name, you can see we have API here, and after API what we have, user slash user. Okay, so after API we have to add slash user, and then when I hit the website, like I hit this URL, what we can see, we will be able to see this returned response here on this route. Let me close this. Okay, the code is compiling here. You can see. See here, we get the data. Whatever we have written here in our get request, username Ikram and email Bagban Ikram. We get it here. Okay, so we are getting an error that we have added here, like in loading.tsx. We need to comment it or remove it from here. Okay, so see, we have written our first API route. We have written our first get request, and we are able to hit this. If I try to hit this API route from the postman, we can hit from the postman as well. What is the postman? If you don't know, it's a software which help us to hit the API without creating a front end. So let me try that out in postman. Let me put my laptop on charge. What's happening? Encounter error. Okay, I think there is some problem with postman. Let me open it again. Okay, you can see if I copy this URL and paste it over here, like it is already there because I was using it before. So if I paste it and you have to select get here. I think my laptop is getting slow. Okay, so you have to select get over here, and then you will hit this send button, and when you hit this send button you will able to see the data here. So what we are able to see the username and email that we are returning from here as a response. This is how we can write a get request in Next.js API route. Let's see how we can write a post requests. If you go down, okay, let's first see how we can get this data inside our front end. So simply just copy this URL, and if I go to the page.tsx, I just need to replace this URL here. I just change the name get user. By the way, we don't have to create a separate folder. We can directly call API here like this. We don't need to create, just I was just writing a clean code. This is user.email and this is user.email. Okay, so we are calling the API, and then we are displaying it over here. And also we have added loading dot, like we have added loader, so we will be seeing loader until we get our user in the response. So let me come here, and if I go to the root route and hit the website again, I can see this loading is dead, and then why I'm not able to see user data. Because why? Let's console how we are getting the data. I think we should make this a bit. If I refresh again, the loading, and then we get our data. So we need to make our response a bit as well. So as you can see, we are able to see our data on our website. This is how we can fetch the data from front end, and this is how we can write get request in the API route. Now let's see databases and ORM. Don't worry if you don't know what are databases, what is ORM. I will be coming with a dedicated video on this. Like I think I will bring a series where I'll covering database and ORM. We will using Postgres, and for ORM we will be using Prisma. What is ORM? Okay, I think I came again. Okay, so the electricity has gone, so my Wi-Fi got disconnected. So I have to connect from my mobile hotspot. So I don't know if it will work. Okay, so you are not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. So yeah, my mobile network is not that fast. Even though it is 5G, it's not giving me enough speed to. It is not even giving me enough speed to like stream my video. There is a lot of struggle. There is a lot of problem I am getting. I have almost given 1.5 hours or 2 hours on the video, and then later I realized that the video has stopped on the very first 30 to 40 minutes, in the 30-40 minutes, and I end up explaining extra 1 hour, and then later I saw that my stream already has stopped. So मेरा 1 डेढ़ घंटा एक्सप्लेन करना वेस्ट हो गया है सारा, और आज भी आई थिंक यही होने वाला है. लेट्स सी गाइस. एक तो चार्ज भी खत्म हो रहा है. आई थिंक we should learn about databases, because I don't want to like explain above things again. So we will be covering in these 4 sections in tomorrow's video. So let's end this stream here, and we'll see tomorrow or next time when I come to the live. I will come to the live. I will teaching these 4 sections. Okay, so that's for this video. Thanks for watching. If you can see, there is one viewer, and that is also me from my mobile, because yesterday कुछ इश्यूज हो गया था जिसकी वजह से स्ट्रीम स्टॉप हो गई थी बीच में. सो नाउ आई हैव टू सी माई ओन वीडियो ऑन माई मोबाइल, सो दैट आई कैन नो गेट के वीडियो स्ट्रीम हो रही है या नहीं, या फिर कल के जैसे प्रॉब्लम आ जाएंगी, दिक्कत हो जाएंगी, फिर इतना टाइम वेस्ट हो गया. तो चलो देखते. बाय, गुड नाइट. अब मैं जा रहा हूँ सोने.